raise a family, that they have some of the same opportunities that me and my wife.
You agreed that we need to see them as a terrorist organization.
On a private cloud server, yes or no?
To love country, to love God, and to try to do the right thing.
Worked for the nation and the interests of the people. Welcome to the Fresh Freedom Podcast, a podcast with 5 freedom-loving freshmen who are all freshman members of Congress. I'm joined with my fellow conservatives here, Josh Burkeen of Oklahoma, Andy Ogles from Tennessee, and Eli Crane from Arizona. Later episodes, we're going to have Anna Paulina Luna join us as well. This podcast is going to be different than any other political talk show podcast. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with a backstage pass, if you will, to what's happening as from the perspective of a freshman member of Congress. We're not going to talk about all the different things that are going on the day. We're going to give you the real world perspective of what we're experiencing. And yes, it's going to be different. We're not professionals, so hopefully we're going to have fun with it. But the focus is going to be our experience. And so we're going to have, we all had different paths to get here, and we all have different perspectives, which I think will add to the show. And with that, I want to kind of kick things off. And in this first episode, tell everybody who we are, how we got here, maybe about the fight to get here, and a little bit about our district. And we'll start with Andy.
My name's Andy Ogles. I'm from Tennessee. I'm a Tennessee native. Married my high school sweetheart, 3 kids, and I really hadn't planned on running for Congress, but with redistricting, I was a county executive in Tennessee. The CEO of the county's elected. But with redistricting, I was a fairly popular mayor. I was very outspoken during COVID. I wouldn't back down. I didn't comply with any of the mandates. I told everybody they go to hell.
You weren't the woke mayor?
No. I mean, look, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. If you want the vaccine, go take it and shut up. I don't care. We have HIPAA for a reason, right? I mean, right. Just go be you. But that means I get to be me. So I decided to run, and my wife and daughter were actually first to say you should do it. My son, Drew, came on later, but my 7-year-old, we were actually at a restaurant where it was an event, and he's tall. I was sitting down. He puts his arm around me. He says, "Dad, I hope you lose." I was like, okay. I didn't try to convince him that I should run for Congress or anything, but it was just one of those, he goes, "I don't want you to be mayor. I don't want you to be in Congress. I just want you to be dad." And I think that's probably the thing that the takeaway for me is that, to a lot of people, we're a congressman, or we're a leader, or we're the, that fighter on their issue. But to our families, we're still dad, or we're still the husband, or the brother, or the son. And so that was kind of an eye-opener for me that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for my kids. And so, but I will say, we all voted together on election day. Our youngest, he's 7, Isaac, comes down the steps, and he's got a big personality. He gets that from his mom. But he throws his hands in the air and he says, "Dad, I'm going to vote for you."
That's awesome.
So it took me until election day, but I convinced my son that I should be a member of Congress, and here we go.
You finally convinced me.
That's right.
All right, Josh.
Josh Burkeen, Oklahoma. I'm not sure my wife voted for me. Actually, during the primary, she was threatening not to. We came at this with a newborn. I've got 4 kiddos, household total between my wife and I.
That's a lot.
And it is. It's a large spread. And then we were blessed with a little gift last year. And so with the newborn.
So you decided to run for Congress with a baby.
So we had
with a newborn baby.
So I had
kind of stupid right there.
Yep. I had, as Eric knows, I'd met Eric years ago at an event, but I was in a small business. I was in what started out to be a excavation business, gravel, rock, sand, dozer excavator type business, and had walked away from politics. I really fed up with what I had seen on a microcosm level, on a state level as a state senator. I left in a year where we were raising taxes, weren't standing up for biblical social issues in a supermajority state, and I walked away really disheartened. And so I went back, started a business. I had years prior worked for a U.S. Senator, Tom Coburn. He had begun reaching out. He had left Washington, D.C., had gotten engaged in another activity. He was battling cancer also, but was encouraged about a concept, and was also encouraged that he thought Oklahoma could could actually right size, and we could stop allowing people to learn conservative speak, conservative stump speech, yet when they got into positions of influence, betray those very values. And so we began talking about starting a policy organization in Oklahoma with me leading it as he's attacking something on the national level.
Tom Coburn was a hero, man.
And so he was. And so that rocked on for about 2 years. It later led to me talking to what used to be focused on the family about starting a policy organization. My push wanting to be not just social but also fiscal responsibility in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Long story short, with my business, I was trying to land the plane with my business. It just never opened up. Prayerfully, I felt like I was supposed to get back involved in policy, which my wife had great trouble with, and especially after the newborn. And then this election of a U.S. Senate race caused my predecessor to enter that race. He's now a U.S. Senator, and it left an opening. And I told my wife, and it just hit me. I said, I think this is what I've been waiting on. I feel like this is, all the other was preparation for me to kind of start landing the plane. I think we're supposed to do this. She's dead set against it. That was on for 3 months. 14 people entered the race. 14 people entered the race. 2 days before the filing deadline, I was resigned, that unless she felt it too, we weren't going to do it. 2 days before filing, she looked at me and said, I'm getting a piece about this prayerfully. The day of filing, I said, where are we at? She said, I don't know. So I took off driving to the Capitol, and I passed the Capitol. I'm on the phone with my wife and my mother praying. Long story short, 3 hours before filing deadline, I filed with my wife saying, go file.
I filed on the filing deadline too.
Did you?
I got in at the last minute.
Wow. How many nights did you sleep on the couch?
And she was for it, man. Ultimately, she's the one. I called her, and after I got there, and I was just sitting there saying, "Is this the right thing? Are we, prayerfully, is this the right thing? Are we doing?"
You wrestled with it.
We wrestled with it, man. Little ones, but look, I'll just say this: for anyone who's watching, conservative, who knows where this country's headed financially, I knew when I'd hold my little girl that her share of the national debt was $94,000, and that's what she opened her eyes and took in her first breath of air owing of that $31 trillion. And I knew 15, 20 years ago, it was much less, a third less. And so I knew I owed it to her for the experience I'd had in years past to try to secure the blessing of liberty for her.
Man, how do you follow that? Okay, Eli.
That's tough, man, for sure. Eli Crane, represent Arizona's 2nd Congressional District. It's like the big, rural, beautiful part of Arizona. It's got the Grand Canyon in it, Flagstaff, Sedona, Prescott. It's awesome.
It's beautiful.
It is. A lot of people don't know that Arizona has mountains and, red rocks and.
Well, you've got you probably have the most geographically diverse district because you've got mountains and snow, and then you have desert.
Yeah, right. And it's huge too. It's bigger than the state of Georgia, so it takes us a long time to cover. But yeah, I never thought I'd get into politics. Went into the military right during college, became an entrepreneur on the back end of that, and then was asked to make a commercial years ago, a political commercial, and we did that. And then some of the people that were involved in it asked me to consider running for Congress.
Now wait a minute, we missed a Navy SEAL segment too.
Yeah, no, I said I was a veteran. Yeah. Right.
Wow, humble guys brushing over.
Yeah, so did that whole thing, and then started the small business, which was cool because we made our products in the USA, which definitely was a learning experience and helped me realize how tough it was to manufacture stuff here in the USA and how hard it is to compete against companies and products that are made offshore where they're paying 1/10 of the labor costs that we were. But it was a great experience, and wound up being asked to consider doing this. And like me and my wife took a couple weeks. We prayed about it. We talked to mentors about it, and we felt like we both had a peace about it. And so we launched into our first political campaign and somehow came out of it. And it's been great in many ways, but the hardest thing is being away from your family. Yeah. And I know we've talked about it, but I'm hopeful that we can actually get something done in this town that's designed not to let anybody get something done.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's hard to follow a guy with the resume like you. Which is amazing.
He just blew past his Navy SEAL background.
Which I appreciate because compared to your resume, I got to admit, I look at mine and I'm thinking, man, I'm the boring financial advisor from Southwest Missouri. I was a financial advisor and a software consultant. If you can't get more boring than that, right? I was, for most of my life, I was that guy that sat in the cubicle, like in the movie Office Space, right? Who was basically, who's like my coffee breaks were the highlight of my life, right? And I would get so mad with politicians, and I was always donating and volunteering for other candidates. And so I was always doing all that kind of stuff. My watch is talking to me for some reason. And I decided to run eventually, and I served in the state house, served in the state senate, and most of the bills that I were filing, most of the issues I was trying to cover or work on were issues that were related to all the crap that we were receiving from the federal government. So, whether it was Obamacare or some gun bill that they would try to pass, we were always responding at the state level. So to me, it was like I spent 12 years as a House member and a senator punching up, if you will, right? And when this opportunity came to run for Congress, and my congressman, like Josh's, ran for U.S. Senate, I was like, man, I'm going to take the fight directly there. I want to be in the room and fight directly where all the problem, all the crap that's coming downhill from D.C. That's what I wanted to. That's why I ran. My wife and daughters are real. My wife is the one that really makes the sacrifice. All of our spouses, right? And my daughters were probably the reason I got elected. I mean, they did a commercial that was just amazing, and it was like a real life, in like what our daily family life was like. But it was like, because my daughters are they're teens now, 15 and 13, and from the perspective of a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, their dad is not cool. He's not cool at all.
Yeah.
And so they did this commercial where it's like us just living our life, me talking about politics throughout normal daily life, and my daughters doing what teenagers do, which is, remind you that you don't know anything. Yeah. And so so I got here, right? And so it's been quite an adventure. So the next part of this, we'll kind of kick off questions. We'll start with Andy, and we'll go around the table. Just everybody ask a question.
Sorry I stepped out. I had a cough. This country boy is allergic to this dang town, man. My sinuses have been killing me all week. But the cherry blossoms are about to bust open, which my wife wants to see. But I'd say, obviously we ran for office with expectations of what we thought it would be like. What's been different about what you thought it would be like being a congressman versus the reality?
I think one of the things that has surprised me the most since I've been up here is when we've got into fights, certain conservatives on TV and the radio that I've looked up to for years, not really having the back of conservatives when you go to do conservative things. That's been the most, I would say, surprising thing that I've seen since I've been up here.
And I would say disappointing as well. I mean,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
For years, the pundits have been talking about how Congress is broken. Yeah. That change has to happen. And then you finally have this opportunity, and politics is about timing. Like had there been a red wave, which, I think we all wanted a red wave, we wouldn't have had quite the leverage that we had in a small majority, right? But there was this opportunity to get back to regular order, and then we were immediately vilified for simply doing what so many people have been talking about doing for a long time.
Well, it's not just talking about, but beating up on politicians. I hear this all the time. Republicans never fight. And then they finally do. And where are you at? Are you're not with us? It's one thing if you stay neutral on it, okay, that's kind of weak as far as I'm concerned. But to start dropping bombs on Republicans who are fighting, somebody sent me a highlight reel of some different individuals who I'd been listening to and watching for years, just some of the things they were saying about us during that whole thing. Really? And I was just I was so disappointed to hear what they were saying. You guys look like idiots up there. And I'm just like, wow, I've been listening to you for a decade rail and rage against the swamp and the establishment. and now people are fighting against it, and
Yeah.
you're beating up on them.
Yeah.
Noted.
Right.
Roger that. So that's been disappointing.
Josh.
Remind me the question.
What's been surprise, from what you thought versus the reality?
The schedule.
Ah,
So I knew it was going to be intense, but I didn't know it was going to be to the utmost. My understanding is we're in the month of what's called March Madness right now. So this last month has been incredible. All of us have extreme committee assignments, but I think some of us sitting at this table have 3 committee assignments. I know you have 3. You have 3? I thought both of you had 3. I find myself, because I'm on Budget Committee and Homeland Security, and I'm grateful that I've got 2 chairmen to serve under that are, that are excited and chomping at the bit like a horse to want to go and tackle what has been because of the minority status they've had. Well, Eli and I last week were on the border. We're going back next week. So when you take in trips to go and get an education, which has to occur, and
I'm
then
not sure if I can go.
and with
I wasn't invited. Never mind.
you're not on that committee. And then on Budget Committee, because of a timeline of April 15th, and then we're doing town halls. Like I'm traveling across my district, and we've done 18 town halls across the district because I want people to understand. Number one, I want you to know the math of where we're headed financially. I want you to understand that the math doesn't work. If we don't start cutting, we do not have a country left in many short years ahead. And no one knows when, but the smartest thing I've heard from an economist is we all know it can't continue forever, and anything that can't continue forever must come to an end.
Don't worry about it, because I don't know if you saw Joe Biden's budget come out this week. It was loaded with cuts. Loaded with cuts. Oh wait, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, largest
Lots
tax
of tax
increases in history.
increases.
Yeah. So, but what I would say is just because of the, we've launched into every constituency comes to Washington D.C. This is the time normally where people come to turn in the request for the growth of government. We're all seeing it. People come to Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
to figure out how can they get their
They
congressman to
line up.
spend more money.
Yeah.
And so the well-heeled money interest and some who well-intentioned and come with good cause. I'm not going to lump them all in the same, but that's March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then with all these committee assignments. So just the schedule and just to say, all right, I got a little girl that's learning to walk, and now she's figured out that I'm really cool because I am. And I want her to have as much access to me as possible. And so it's just, that's tough.
Eric?
I would say just the differences in policy, the way things are conducted up here than a state legislature. It's kind of crazy and it kind of lets you understand why this place is the swamp, right? The fact that you could pass bills with just a voice vote, with no one really being in the room, is nuts.
Totally different state legislature.
The fact that like in committees, I would say I'm really disappointed in like discussions or debate in committees. We don't really debate the bill. Most of the other side is when they get their 5 minutes, they just use it to rant against Donald Trump, right? And it's like, we're talking about immigration policy right now, or we're talking about the debt. We're not talking about Trump. We're talking about, like, we've got to figure this out, people, right? Like, that's kind of disappointing. The other thing, like, just on a personal level that's really crazy is how many amenities are available. Like, Dunkin' Donuts is right below me, right? In the building.
That's not good.
Right?
Yeah, that working
we have
out
a
and
hot
Dunkin'
dog
Donuts doesn't
stand.
work together,
There's-
man.
The fact there's a hot dog stand, like, in the back of the chamber is crazy to me, right? It would never happen in the state legislature.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna go check. I'm gonna go check these hot dogs out.
Well, I'll say for me, it's during orientation, all that stuff, you spend so much time with, you kind of start building friendships and bonds, and then once we all get assigned to our committees, it becomes very isolating. And so, when people, for me, when you hear the phrase "the swamp," I can see how people kind of get sucked into it, because even though we're surrounded by people all the time,
It's very lonely.
It's a very lonely existence, right? And so you suddenly start gravitating towards pods of people with similar interests, and it kind of sucks you in. And so that's one of the things I've just tried to recoil from and just maintain those genuine, authentic relationships. Like, that's why, we're here. That's why we cut jokes and kind of cut on each other a little bit. And, because I go home and then suddenly I'm in my room by myself, and you're alone. And
Yeah.
your family's at home and they're having their life, and you've got your committee and you've got your dinner, and so that it's a weird existence being a congressman. It's an honor to do it. And
It's not glamorous either.
Yeah.
It is not glamorous.
Yeah.
Most of my life now is on a plane
Yeah.
or in an airport.
Yep.
So, but not to depress everyone, this has been great.
But it's real. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. So that's I think that's pretty much, we want to keep the time of these podcasts to, short so that people will actually maybe listen to them. So with that, we'll close this one out. And
Let's not get carried away.
That's right. Low expectations.
so we want to remind people, check out the description below for our social media handles. Please, click and follow each of us. This podcast is going to be available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Rumble. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And we will see you next time on the Fresh Freedom Podcast.